So we'll go to public questions, and we have one member of the public who's attended this evening, Will McKellar from the CAB. Will, would you like to speak to us?
I'll further down the agenda, sorry.
Well, perhaps I'll work by way of explanation, I'll explain that I was going to take you and Aaron first, so you can do your agenda items, and you can then, if you want to stay, you're very welcome to stay. If you want to leave, you're very welcome to leave either.
No problem with that.
Well, thanks very much. Yeah, am I okay here? Seems to be okay.
Well, sit next to Helen if you wish.
I just think I'll be behind somebody. Do I need to turn this on?
No.
I'm not prepared. Okay, yeah, so I'm Will McKellar. I'm the Chief Officer at Slivin Advice Cheshire North, which has its office based in Macclesfield. And primarily I'm here to talk about, or to rather talk to the report that I submitted previously for the last quarter, but also to take any questions that may run from that, or any other questions around the service that we're delivering. If hopefully people have read the report, and it suggests that, certainly based on the previous quarter, that there's been an increase in the kind of issue, well, the numbers of people coming to our service for help, and the kind of issues that people are bringing to us. The main types of issues are, as what it's always been, welfare rights, debt, employment, housing, a lot of them exacerbated by COVID still, I'm afraid. I would say, even though there's an increase in all the numbers for the quarter four, set against quarter three. Quarter three is a time of year that traditionally the numbers do drop for us. So relatively speaking, although it's a quarter activity higher than the previous one is usually quite low anyhow. Having said that, the service that we're providing locally, we've been expanding. During COVID, for a good 18 months, we were working remotely. So most of the service we delivered was by phone, email or web chat. And although for the first year of COVID, we saw a 33% increase in the numbers of people that we were dealing with, even though we're dealing entirely remotely. We were aware that a significant number of the people that would normally use our service weren't, and that's generally clients with mental health issues. So as soon as we were able to open up the service to face-to-face, we've done so. So we initially started with appointments, and we've more recently opened up an open door session. That's Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday mornings. That's despite the fact that we lost about 25% of our volunteer staff as a consequence of COVID. People who maybe weren't active during the COVID period felt that they did want to undergo the training that's required of all our advisors. So we are doing more than we were with COVID, but with less than we had prior to COVID. And the main issues continue to be, as I say, employment, welfare benefits, and debt is on the increase. The issues affecting debt are multiple. One is that during COVID, there was an artificial suppression of people coming to us with debt issues because of actions that the government took at the time, which denied landlords and creditors the opportunity to be able to pursue debts. So whereas prior to those restrictions, clients would be driven to us, because that wasn't happening, clients didn't come, so we saw a significant drop in debt at that time. That's on the increase. Also, a driver for that will be the post-Christmas issues that people find that inevitably, regrettably, is predictable, that people overstretch themselves around about Christmas time. So into the period after Christmas and into the spring, we traditionally see an increase in debt there, but also the things that are grabbing the news headlines at the moment, that being the cost of living increase and of course domestic fuel. Those things don't appear to be going to go away, and we've been having discussions with Cheshire East Council, but also the local MP around our role in dealing with those issues. So even though we've been we've been dealing with more inquiries, and we've had a reduction in our capacity to meet that with our volunteer advisors. We have now recruited new volunteers and training them, but that can take quite a while. Fortunately, over the last 4 months, we've been able to secure some temporary funding through the Cheshire World Partnership and Cheshire East Council to enable us to employ for 12 months a couple of what we refer to as citizens advocates that help us deal with the increasing inquiries from clients with mental health issues. Before 2016, we used to deliver a mental health advocacy service across the whole of Cheshire East, and the majority of that work was dealt with what we call general advocacy for adults with mental health issues. So that's people with mental health issues that have problems with their housing, their welfare benefits, their debt, their relationships, and so on. And fortunately, the funding that we've been able to receive is helping bolster that service whilst we are in the process of negotiating with Cheshire East Council what will happen for the immediate future. What we are aware of, what we're seeing very clearly, is that the impact of cost of living, but more significantly over a longer period of time, the increase in domestic fuel is meaning that we've never been more busy, we've never been more in demand. And for the foreseeable 12 months and probably well beyond, until something at a national level, I think, is done, where our service is going to be never more in demand. I'm happy to take any questions around, as I say, the initial quarter report, or the way that we're delivering the service, or our view on the kind of issues that people are going to be bringing to us. I'm happy to take any questions.
Lovely, thank you very much indeed, Will. So I'm now going to take agenda item 9.2 regarding the Q4 report from the CAB and the contribution that Will's just made. Does anybody have any questions or comments, please? Yes, Ruth, Councillor Thompson.
I was just going to ask you about the combined Cheshire Wirral partnership and the money. So did you say the split? I'm sorry if I missed it.
I did say the split. What we have, what we're able to do
is to secure a full-time equivalent post, one from the Cheshire Wirral Partnership for a citizens advocate, and a similar role from Cheshire East Council as part of the COVID recovery. Because what we were looking to do is to be able to get out from our offices and engage with that particular client group, adults with mental health problems, and help them deal with the kind of issues that we talk about: welfare benefits, debt, employment, housing, relationship, all those kind of things.
So presumably if those two, just to clarify, so presumably if those two people are from those two different organisations, they will have access to those organisations' networks and... No,
the funding comes from those two organisations. However, in a radical move, rather than just giving us the money, there is an encouragement to get involved with other organisations which are similarly funded. So there is a network, even if it's an established network, it's making more new, better networks. So it's a good point. It just comes from a different way. So the funding comes, but as a condition of the funding is that we work closer with others.
Yeah, just to say thank you once again for your sterling work, for your volunteers and your paid staff as well. Ever more needed in these current times of fuel poverty and so on. You say about your advocates and you're hoping to get out there. Would there be a potential for them to visit wards, or do they go by a client-by-client basis?
It's an issue-based service, so it's client by client. When you say the wards, you're talking medical wards, or as opposed to...
No, the council wards, so to go each area. Yeah.
Yes, it's client by client, yeah.
Okay.
So we could potentially attend every ward, but it would be determined by the client needs, really.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Councillor Howard.
Thank you. What's your relationship with the Crisis Cafe that is recently opened in Macclesfield?
Yeah, we visited the Crisis Cafe, myself and one of the citizens advocates visited the cafe about 4-6 weeks ago, something like that, where we spoke with the staff there around how we would we could refer in, but for us, more importantly, how they could refer to us, and our use of the cafe to see some clients. What we did talk about was the possibility of us delivering a service there, but one of the main challenges around being venue-based is that it can involve a lot of dead time if you haven't got the clients. So the generally and that's a learned thing from delivering services for quite a while. So we have been there, and we've established a connection. Now I don't deliver the service, so whether the referrals are coming through or are being exchanged, I don't know. But I do know that one of our citizens advocates certainly has subsequently seen a client, if not a number of clients there. So it's something that we're aware of. They are aware of our service, and we're making use of it. I can't tell you around the specific activity because it's still relatively new right now.
Thank you. Councillor Livingston?
Yeah, thanks for the report. I think that's very comprehensive. I'm just interested in getting a sense of, given the pandemic is, well, in theory over, what's level of demand and type of demand do you think you're going to see as the cost of living crisis kicks in?
Well, as I said, debt issues were artificially suppressed. Added to that, as you say, the cost of living. Added to that, if you're going to view it separately, the increase in domestic fuel, then that's where I see a significant increase. That's one of the conversations that we're having with Cheshire East Council around that specialist money advice, debt advice, because unlike, let's say, our welfare benefit or our employment, our housing, or relationship type advice, money advice, debt advice is regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority. So whereas we can get a member of staff to deliver all those other kind of issues, to be able to deliver around specialist money advice, they need to be qualified and certified to a degree and have the technical supervision to be able to conduct that work. So it's more than what you see really. But money advice certainly. But as other squeezes come to play, one of the things that we saw over COVID and what we normally see over holiday times is things around relationships, because one of the things that make and break relationships is proximity. So when people are enforced to be with one another, those kind of issues come to the fore. So that's one of the things that we're seeing as well. But looking at the numbers, it's welfare benefits, it's employment, it's housing, and a lot of the housing isn't necessarily related to COVID, but a lot of the issues around housing have been neighbour disputes, but also disrepair.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? No? Okay, well, Will, thank you very much indeed for coming along. You're very, very welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting if you wish. Okay, thank you. I'm going to stay with agenda item 9 and take our next external speaker, who is Inspector Aaron Cooper, who's come on this evening for the first time to speak to us. So I'm now taking agenda item 9.1, and Inspector Cooper wants to just say a few words first of all, and then I'm sure we've got some questions for you.
Thanks very much. Thanks for letting me speak. Yeah, I'm Aaron Cooper. I took up the post of Neighbourhood Inspector at Macclesfield just 3 weeks ago, so I'm the new guy. And my job simply is to make the neighbourhood team in Macclesfield the best version of itself that, you know, that I can make it, that they can possibly be. So a bit about myself. I've been in the police 19 years. I started my career in Greater Manchester Police. I did 14 years there, and the rest has been with Cheshire, and it was a good move really, because I think 14 years in one force is quite a long time. So my career has always been in uniform apart from 2 years. I did a year in the CID, and I did a year on a project. So I've seen neighbourhood policing work at 3 different ranks, at PC, at Sergeant and as Inspector in the Oldham area of Greater Manchester. So it's it's going to be really good to see how that differs to Macclesfield, and the team that I've met all seem really up for the challenge. The team, by the way, is going to be expanded this summertime with some recruitment of PCs and PCSOs. So one of my very first jobs over the past couple of weeks was to get my dibs in and say, you know, we need more PCs, beat bobbies in Macclesfield and Poynton, as well as PCSOs. This is why, and I've had a really positive response from HR, and I'm going to see new officers coming through all during the summer. We've got a big recruitment class coming through in August, so hopefully by the end of the summer we're going to be properly staffed. So my job really is to focus on the many issues that comes the direction of a neighbourhood inspector. ASB is always one. I'd like to see an increased police presence here, actually in the town centre, in Macclesfield town centre. Like I say, we've got more staff coming through, and the first area I'm going to position those staff is Mac town centre. I think we need to be more visible. I think every ward has got a PCSO and a beat bobby. I think they need to be visible, and what that means to me is them not being in the station bogged down with admin, where you know they could be visible at key times and in obvious places. So I'm thinking parish meetings, for example. We've been underrepresented as a neighbourhood team in parish meetings. So what I've done already is make sure my two sergeants, Sergeant Percival and Sergeant Snowden, have updated their calendars so that all of the meetings, all the many parish meetings in Macclesfield are visible there from now for the next 6 months, and then we're going to do the next half of the year after that. I want a PCSO or a PC to be visible in those meetings, even if they only get to be there for 15-20 minutes and that they can speak first. They're incredibly busy, but I think one of their top duties is to actually be there and hear what's going on in the community from key partners. We'll be really missing the trick if we don't do that. So, by the way, I was asked earlier, I was speaking with Councillor Edwards and Councillor Thompson about how you find out who your local PC and PCSO is. It's on the Cheshire Constabulary website. If you actually go on the website's main page, just scroll down, there's a dedicated search engine there. Just type in the area or type in the postcode, wherever it is that you want to see. I think Councillor Thompson is assisting me now. Thank you. It will display basic crime stats for that area, and then crucially who your local PC and who your local PCSO is. Now clearly with recruitment the way it is, and the team's expanding, and us going to be having more staff than what we've currently got, it's the job of HR and then my job to make sure that's up to date, because it's only going to work if it's up to date. But just in case you didn't know, that's where you can find out, and it usually works, because one of the first jobs I did when I heard I was getting this post is to go through all the areas in Macclesfield, all the postcodes. I did give some feedback to HR, so updates are going ahead as we speak, because I only spoke with them a week or so ago. So some things we've been involved with recently is, like I said, the first thing I said was antisocial behaviour. It was brought to my attention that in the South Park area, in South Park itself, that there was some ASB by kids, low-level drug dealing, that kind of thing, criminality. I stepped up patrols there just to be as visible as they can be. I can't afford to have a PC or a PCSO in the park all the time unless it's really bad all the time. What I've told them to do with the help of the sergeants is to find out when the key times are and then actually be there at the key times. That's very, very basic stuff, and I just don't want us to miss a trick by just say ASB is flaring up at 7 in the evening on a Monday. Why aren't we there? That's the question I'm going to be asking. So that's an example of us really being flexible. That the job of a neighbourhood team is not to work office hours Monday to Friday. It's to go where the business is. I'm no exception to that either. Some neighbourhood inspectors work 8-4 Monday to Friday, whatever. I do not intend to do that at all. I need to be visible in the afternoon as well. 10 at night, midnight, whenever, and working weekends when it's called for. Another success we had recently was Operation Spectre. That was to get knives off the streets of Macclesfield and wider Cheshire. one of my PCSOs in Poynton, his work led to 40 knives being recovered from somewhere, which was a great success, and that's something that you know, hopefully is a sign of things to come. It was his own initiative that you know, actually led to that. So yeah, I suppose if you have any questions, I can be guided by you and just give my best answer.
Okay, any questions? Oh, I'll go around the room. So Councillor Edwards first.
Thank you very much. It was nice to have a chat earlier on as
Yeah,
well,
that was.
and I gave you some of my comments. Quite a while ago, not this present Police and Crime Commissioner, the one before, David
Mr. Keane, David Keane.
David Keane, that's right. Made this big thing and press announcement that putting more bobbies on the beat and so on, you know. And when I took it up with him, quite a few months later, I was told, well, it takes quite a long time to actually train the people. And you said that you were hoping to have people this summer. That is to start, you've got to recruit them yet, and you've got to train them. So it could be next year, I would think, before they can actually go on the beat. How long does it take?
Well, they're actually being trained at the moment. I should have made that clear, so I apologise for that. But in August, I'm going to be given PCs and PCSOs trained, graduated from basic training for me actually to put out on the beat. So apologies, that's what I meant.
I'm sorry if I misunderstood.
Yeah, but you're absolutely right. It does take you know, around 6 months for basic training.
The second one was I was slightly sort of surprised of the success of the knives campaign, and there was another one for guns, wasn't there?
There certainly was, yes.
Handing in guns.
Yeah.
The PCSO went to Sandwich Drive and to West Park, I think, for these knives to be handed in. Do you have any figures? How many were handed in at all in Macclesfield?
I do have the figures, but not to hand. But I can absolutely email those figures to you.
I just wonder how successful it was. One of the questions was, if the person's collecting the knives in Sandwich Drive, play area, how do you get the gun, the knife there to hand it in? That was one of the questions I was asked. I didn't
Right.
answer that.
Yeah, I mean these knife amnesties, weapon amnesties, are always they're always quite successful, to be honest. But we made this even more successful, certainly in Macclesfield, by the PCSOs being proactive. For example, a PCSO in Poynton went into a local butcher's shop, and in the basement there were loads of old knives. Now, if they weren't disposed of properly, just say they were just chucked on the tip, local, youths, people who wanted access to knives would get them. So that was a bit of proactivity to actually go to that business. Are they going to have knives? Yes, they are. Have they got any that they want to dispose of? And we can assist with that. We can just take them, put them in our knife bin, and then they get melted down. So that was a piece of good work. It just made it more successful for Macclesfield than other parts of the county.
There's one final point, and that is praise, really. I'm very, very critical in the past about the 101 phone system and so on. It has been much, much better recently whenever I've used it or whenever my residents have, and you deserve praise for that.
Thanks very much. One of the promises that the new PCC, Mr. Dwyer, made was to really bolster the numbers we have in our FCC. That's our Force Contact Centre. So members of the public ring in, they're the individuals that you speak to. We've literally recruited in the past 6 months tens of members of staff. So I phoned it earlier today, and I think it was 6 rings before I got through to someone. I did it so I could mention it now, because absolutely it's part of the service that did come under scrutiny quite rightly. If I phoned the police, I would not want to be passing the phone from one arm to the other because my arm was getting tired because I was on hold for so long. That's no longer the case in Cheshire, and that's a real step forward.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Buffett.
Oh, thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, I'm sure that the different councillors have got specific questions that they might ask, but I was quite taken by your point about knives and officers having initiative, and I thought that sounded really good. So just do do you encourage your staff or your colleagues to work out what they need to pursue or what they need to investigate, or do you take that? Are you proactive in that sense? Because I was trying to get a feel for whether, you know, sort of, because I mean we hear an awful lot of hot air about thousands of officers and billions of pounds and all this, but from what, you know, being a councillor here, and with the Madam Mayor in South Macclesfield, it's about initiatives and listening, very much about listening. So I just wondered if you could elaborate a bit more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the PCC's objectives for Cheshire over the next few years are what we as police are driven by. And I think any work we're putting a load of energy in that doesn't complement those objectives, I need to question, is that work we need to do at all? Now, the PCC's objectives really encompass quite a lot of things. You know, antisocial behaviour, volume crime like burglary, robbery, all the kind of thing that you'd expect. But I think on top of that, I mentioned before, as a neighbourhood team, the successful neighbourhood team will always be flexible. So just say that there is a spike in, say, theft from a motor vehicle, and that isn't covered by force objectives, PCC objectives. If I can justify us being in the, say the hotspot area at the right time, I've got the creative control with my team to actually do that and actually be there with my team, because I can absolutely justify it. So I do see it as a set of rigid objectives by the PCC, but I'm given the flexibility to be able to use my initiative, and if another crime type is emerging, I absolutely need to be on top of that and know why it's happening and know how to prevent it.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Livingston.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just welcome to Macclesfield to start with. I think your company is welcomed by myself. I'm one of the Central Ward councillors, so I cover the town centre and the surrounding area, and I'm sure my other colleagues take an equal interest in the town centre. So I'm reassured by you telling us that more resources are coming. I think the view that I shared with my Cheshire East Council colleagues in Central Ward is that we were a bit thin on the ground. There'd been a bit of a pattern of antisocial behaviour in the town centre that was concerning. So welcome the resources coming. I think from my Cheshire East colleagues and myself, what we're keen to do is, your new recruitment comes in, is to meet them and engage with them and do ward walks with them. We're not to be a burden to you, but to be a support to you on the basis of encouraging them and helping them with what they do. So we really welcome that opportunity as and when the new people come.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really nice of you to say, and I think what we play is a team sport. I think if we're not interacting with key partners, we're not going to be as successful as we could be. So absolutely, the idea of doing a ward walk certainly with the new beat managers and PCSOs, that's absolutely something that we'll do.
Okay. Yes, Councillor Bennett-Wake.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's just a question from a resident of mine, Mrs Alison Mitchell, who's a nurse at the hospital. She's been a nurse for 30 years, and she's been using a mobility scooter because of an illness that she's recovering from. And because someone was parked on the pavement on her way to work, she hit something on the other side on the pavement and completely toppled over on the scooter. And fortunately she was able to get up and wasn't too badly injured, but have had quite a lot of complaints about pavement parking in the past, or hedges overgrown. I wondered, is that a reportable crime, and is it something that the officers look out for?
Yeah, if it's obstructing a footpath, it is reportable. However, what we tend to do is refer that on to highways with Cheshire Council. I dealt with it, it's a coincidence actually, I dealt with a complaint incredibly similar to that about 1 week ago, where there was, it wasn't illegal, this is the thing, it wasn't illegal parking, but it was daft parking. There was a blind bend, there were no double yellow lines, so all these residents parked around this incredibly tight blind bend, and it's only a matter of time before something terrible happens there. So that isn't something that I can deal with as a police officer, but I can make a referral to highways so they can consider getting double yellow lines down there, and I know there are plenty of places in Cheshire like that.
Yeah. Yeah, as I thought, as she has reported, it has been reported
Right.
to Cheshire East, but we were just wondering whether it was actually a crime, because it's not fair on people with disabilities who are using, or people with prams who are using wheelchairs, prams, disability scooters. They're being discriminated against because they can't, because cars are now parking on the pavement or
Yeah.
the bushes and
I
stuff.
think as a minimum, I would get I'd deploy a PCSO to go and assess the situation, just because if it's really dangerous, we can actually make a referral ourselves to highways and say we've got a resident that's made this complaint to us. We've been out, we've seen it, and you know that may carry a bit more weight in a long-term solution. I don't know, double yellow light lines, something like that.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Walcott.
Thank you. So I'm Councillor on Gregory Consultant with Councillor Thompson. Just a question. I mean, obviously you've mentioned to us about the recruitment, which is sounding fantastic. You did mention the website, and when I did contact Macclesfield Police Station just to ask a question, a general question, I then asked the lady who was speaking to on the phone, who's the PCSO and beat officer. The response I got from that was, oh, it's on the website.
Right.
So I just said, well, it's not correct because it was PCSO Barlow who left in November of last year.
Right. Yeah.
And again, I mentioned about the beat officer because I've never seen our beat officer in a few years of the council. So are we still going to have the same beat officer? And I believe we've got a new PCSO. Any information on that at all?
Yeah, so the website does need updating. The first thing I did actually before I took up this post is to go through that website and make sure it was updated. I'd say about 80% of it was. Clearly 20% of it needs updating. I got onto IT, who were responsible for keeping it up to date in partnership with HR. That was a number of weeks ago. That's a job for me to chase up, because it's only, like I said before, the website only works if it's updated. If it's out of date or even like no information on there, then clearly it isn't working. Generally it is, but that is a work in progress at the moment. Regarding phoning, where did you phone through to, Councillor? Was it the front desk at Macclesfield Police Station?
Yeah, I had to ring head office and then they put me through because there's no direct telephone number to the police station.
You see, I'd hope the person taking that call could go on the website themselves and tell you if they were unsure, but I know at our front desk we do have lists of who works where, so I'm not sure why that happened. I think.
Yeah, as I said, it was definitely the lady on the desk.
Right. Okay.
Who said the information on the website.
Right.
And
okay.
I don't think she sounded too interested when I mentioned it. It was
right.
which I found concerning, and thinking if other residents are trying to find information out for the same kind of response comes back.
Right.
Which just sounds a bit.
I'll make a note of that now,
yeah.
and I will feed that back. I'll feed that back in person tomorrow.
And just what beat officer is that staying? Because as I said, I've never met our beat officer on Broken Cross and Upton.
Yeah, so I'll get back to you with the answer, because I've got new officers coming through, and I'm still making decisions of where to position them. So I'll absolutely get back to you.
That was brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any other questions, comments? No? Okay, so it's my turn now. So I'm a ward councillor too. And so, I mean, first of all, thank you very much indeed for coming along to talk to us. Because as you can see from the questions that you're getting, we are very interested in what's happening, and also lots of residents refer inquiries to us. And we work closely with our Cheshire East colleagues in our wards to make sure our residents are best represented and supported. In terms of new staff, what's happened in the past is that you've let us know when there's been a change of officer. So the town clerk is emailed, and then the town clerk can let the councillors know who their PCSOs and PCs are on their beat. So could we ask if that's going to continue? Because we've heard from discussions this evening that the website isn't completely up to date. And I get that, because these things do take a little while to organise. But in the past we have been emailed and given the information. And so we could do that, that would be great. I also want to speak about, let you know, the benefit of ward walks. Our PSO, Matt, is absolutely brilliant. I'm in South Ward, and we do regular ward walks, and we've reinstated those since COVID has subsided. Yeah. And it's really very beneficial for us to meet and talk to our PCSOs, because we can share and support each other with the concerns of residents, etc. And the particular issue we have, I'm very fortunate. I think, that the leasing.com stadium is on my ward, so Macclesfield Football Club is almost across the road from where I live. And we have a series of concerns, very much like the ones that Councillor Bennett Wake has outlined, particularly on match days, about pavement parking, stopping wheelchair users getting to the club. And I just wondered if you could let me know, what sort of plans are in hand to deal with that, because it's match days is one of the key issues, but also it's a lot busier there now, and there is some very inconsiderate, if not careless parking goes on around there. What has happened so far? Have we been in discussions with the club, with Cheshire East? How can we help residents who are sometimes not even able to get into their own homes and their drives because of inconsiderate parking?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So the first thing, if that system worked before, where we would email the town clerk, that sounds like a simple and effective system. So I don't see why we can't carry on doing that. I'll take that away as an action. I'll make sure that is still the situation, and do everything in my power that just stays the same, because it sounds quite basic, like it works. In relation to Macclesfield Football Club, I know that as a matter of course we don't manage the traffic there. I believe it's the council. I know I don't follow football at all. But Macclesfield were quite successful recently, and I believe there's going to be some kind of parade in a few weeks from now. I heard about that for my attention, but not really any actions for me to do anything with. I'm going to send some staff there just to be present on the day, because we're going to have a lot of public there. However, it was...
It's actually not taking place now, so...
Oh, pardon?
The parade's not taking place.
Oh, it isn't, right, okay, well that's a welcome update, because I'll have my PCSOs doing other things. But the information I was going to pass is that in the document that I received, all the traffic management was going to be performed by the council, and I was specifically told that the police wouldn't be involved in that. Now, I think longer term, it's something that we potentially could get involved with, but may not lead on. I think highways would likely lead on that. Traffic wardens and the like, who could, in the short term, do things like issuing tickets, giving verbal advice and that kind of thing. And in the longer term, look at maybe designing out the problem, whether that's simply putting down yellow lines and enforcing that on match day, because like us, highways need to be in the right place at the right time. Match days is an obvious one. I think they will lead on it, but I will certainly support it. And that's certainly some dialogue I can have with highways. That's an action I'll take in the
Yes,
meeting.
please, because the success of the stadium and the facilities provided there is absolutely brilliant, but it has had a very negative knock-on effect for a number of neighbours who are struggling with very thoughtless parking. I think on match days residents fully understand that it's going to be busy, but it is a growing problem. So if you could make a note for action on that, would be much appreciated.
Yeah, sure. So I've got 3 actions, and I'm going to make sure the email system is still in effect and still works. There's the traffic that we've just spoken about, and then the front desk having access to what we've discussed, council, as well. So
yeah, lovely. Okay, well, thank you very much indeed for coming along. As you can tell from the number of questions and the variety of questions you've had, we're very interested and concerned to engage. You said to me before the meeting started you would like to come to all of our meetings, which is very welcome. The next one is on the 25th of July here at the Town Hall, 7 o'clock, and the clerk will let you have the dates for the rest of the year, so you can pop them in your diary.
Thanks very much.
But thank you very much indeed for coming along and answering all our questions.
No, thanks. Thanks everyone. Good to meet you all.
Please feel free to stay, both of you, but please feel free to leave. I appreciate you've got. Try and take public speakers or external speakers sooner rather than later. So you're very welcome to stay while we go through all of the minutes of all our meetings, but possibly it's not as exciting as all that. So thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Good to meet you. Okay, so we'll go back to the agenda itself to take the minutes first of all. But before we do so, there's another matter I just want to very quickly cover, and that is I want to welcome Nicola Mella, our new Admin and Governance Manager, and also Rachel Hyam, our new Events Officer, who have joined the Town Council. We'll say a little bit more when we get to the agenda item, but I wanted to welcome you both. Thank you very much for coming along this evening. And hopefully you'll enjoy, that's the right word, but you'll get some insight into what our meetings are like. But you're both very welcome. Thank you very much indeed. Okay, we'll hopefully whiz through the minutes then. So going to agenda item 4, minutes of the full council on the 29th of March. I'm going to take these in blocks unless anyone shouts otherwise. So 4.1, 29th of March, 4.2, town meeting on the 11th of April, and 4.3, the town meeting on the 16th of May. So we need to approve those minutes. All those in favour? Anybody against? That's all agreed. Thank you. Agenda item 5, matters arising. Does anybody have any matters arising from those minutes? No? Okay, so we'll go to the Planning Committee, agenda item 6. And we've got Planning Committee minutes from the 18th of March, the 8th of April, the 29th of April, the 20th of May. Are those noted? Yep. Any matters arising from those minutes? No? Okay. Services Committee, agenda item 7. The Services Committee minutes from the 25th of April. Are those noted? Any matters arising? No? Okay. Finance Committee minutes from the 9th of May. Are those noted? Any matters arising?
I think there should be. I'm just struggling with the new tech. Just a second to get to.
There aren't any on the agenda.
There's no spent days because we had the year end last time.
The year end was only on the 31st of March, so we don't have a spent day report at this first meeting, but you're quite correct. In July, there will be something for you to do as chair of finance. So, any matters arising, anybody? No? Okay, so we've done 9.1, 9.2. I do believe it's important to take speakers early on in the meeting, because I think it does us good to start with a decent debate about things, and then, you know, before we start going through minutes and stuff. So hopefully you'll feel that was acceptable. So we now need to move to agenda item 9.33, CCTV. Any comments? Yeah, Sandy, sorry, Councillor Livingstone and then Councillor Puttick.
Just, Madam Mayor, I think one of the concerns we have is that moving the cameras, and progress with moving the cameras to South Park, whether that's actually been enacted. And I think the council previously agreed to buy 2 new cameras. So the question would really be from our colleagues in Cheshire East, well, is there any progress update?
Yes, Town Clerk.
So I've received the CCTV report update, which is generally a blanket report across Cheshire East, which I will send out. I didn't get it in time. I did chase it, I didn't get it in time for this meeting. No, the camera has not moved. We requested it moved to the Western. Councillor Hutchinson did request it to go somewhere in the Western. And that's a separate thing to the South Park one. Neither have progressed, even though I've chased it. And the purchase of 2 cameras is going full circle. I was told, well, you can't have them. And then I spoke to Councillor Warren, we went to meet CCTV, and then it came back saying, you didn't ask for them. And I didn't ask for something you said I couldn't have. So how did you know I wanted it if you didn't ask for it? So my suggestion would be we don't buy any more cameras till we actually move the 1 camera we have at least once somewhere. So, and I've not been able to do that in nearly 2 years. So I think there is issues, and I will pursue them with Councillor Warren and Madam Mayor to move this forward. We pay a significant amount of money, in excess of £30,000 to Cheshire East a year for CCTV. And we haven't been able to move 1 camera yet. So that's where we are.
Okay, do you want to come back on that, Councillor Livingston?
No, just to agree with Madam Mayor,
Course of action,
and
that's
Clerk, that we pursue that. We don't buy the new cameras, but we encourage Cheshire East to provide the moving camera that we've already got.
Okay, so Councillor Pontic next, and then Councillor Edwards.
Just further from that, I think Councillor Harewood and myself, I mean more than 2 years ago, we've stressed the fact that for the whole town to have confidence in why we spend so much money on CCTV cameras, it should be more spread out. We should have the opportunity for the Western Estate to be represented, to be for South Macclesfield to feel like their areas are protected. And I think that I mean, I didn't ask the police representative that came today, but you know, of course, this is low level sort of enforcement is so key, and all of us are constantly asked about this. So we need it to start working much more in harmony, police, community enforcement and CCTV. And I think there's an item later on where we'll talk about that of report. But you know, so it's just like this appears to be something where we need to if we ask for something, we need to see it in action. So.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I fully support what the other councillors have said. One thing, I recently went to the Scout camp at Barneswood, is it called, on the Leith Road, out in the middle of nowhere. And they have very good CCTV. They have beams that are broken and setting off alarms when you cross them and so on, out in the middle of nowhere. Things have moved on since we started asking about these cameras, with the use of Wi-Fi and all that sort of thing. I really think that we should be able to do something about it now, instead of being fobbed off all the time. Thank you.
Any other speakers? No, well, I think fobbed off all the time is actually how we feel. So I think there's been 2 items agreed there that the town clerk will pursue once again with Cheshire East Council. The moving of the camera, as we agreed some time ago, and in terms of the £7,000 we've allocated to buying 2 new cameras, we will pen that until we've got the moved camera in dispute moved. Does that summarise what we've agreed? Lovely. Okay, thank you. So we'll move on to the governance review. I'll take each item individually. We have, first of all, 10.1, the environmental policy, which has one change at 2.5.1. Does anyone wish to speak on this? Nick, yeah, Councillor Puttick?
I think it's just the change that I thoroughly approve of, because it's because environmental is kind of local as well, and we are absolutely supporting local businesses, and we continue to do that. Certainly as a finance committee, we consider that as almost as strongly, because it's just a crucial part of it. So we're just checking that that's in there.
Yes, it is in there. That's the one amendment. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Any other comments on 10.1? Okay. So put for approval. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. So 10.2, the information and data protection policy. This has some revisions, minor grammar and numbering changes. Does anybody wish to speak on this? Ask any questions, comments? No? Okay, so I'll put that for approval. All those in favour of approving the information and data protection policy? All those in favour? That's everybody, thank you. Unanimously agreed. Agenda item 10.3, the transparency policy. This is again an updating. Anybody want to make any comments, ask any questions? No? So I'll put that to you for approval. All those in favour of the transparency policy, please show. That's unanimous, thank you. So now we have 10.4, the whistle-blowing policy. Again, reviewing and updating for full council 21st of March, minor formatting and review. Any questions or comments on the whistle-blowing policy? No? All those in favour of approving the whistleblowing policy then, please.
Just abstain.
Well, okay, so anybody against? Abstentions? That's carried. Thank you. Okay, so the community governance review, agenda item 11. So, very successful outcome for the Town Council, one in which I personally am very pleased. The initial proposals for our council to double in size to 24 councillors were rather bizarre, bearing in mind the so recent establishment of the Town Council and the consultation that took place with the public at that time. So I personally am very delighted with this outcome. Does anybody else want to speak on the report? Yes, Councillor Livingston.
I would just agree with you, Madam Mayor. I think we're all delighted with the outcome in terms of retaining our boundaries and a number of councillors. I think we just commend the report.
Okay. So the report is therefore noted. Okie doke, thank you. Agenda item 12. This is the staffing report. I've welcomed both Nicola and Rachel who've come along this evening to be at full council. I welcome you both again. I'm really pleased that you've been able to join us. And I also want to thank very much our 3 existing staff. Thank Laura and Helena and Abby, who have done a sterling job over the past number of months, keeping things going. The 3 of them, when we normally have 5 staff. I think it's worth us reminding ourselves that our colleagues left in January, and because the recruitment process does take some time, we took the opportunity, if you'll recall, to review our staffing. And when somebody leaves, the sort of silver lining of the cloud is always that we have the opportunity to review the services that we deliver and how we delivered them. And full council did agree some changes in responsibilities, which enabled us to even more strengthen our team and our services to councillors and residents. You're both very welcome, and the current staff are very, very much thanked for all the work they've done to keep things ticking over. And we do need to remind ourselves that there have been significant amounts of items done and delivered during the time we've been down to 3 staff, shall we say. So thank you very much, everybody, for all the hard work you've put in and keeping us all going. It's very much appreciated. So, does anybody want to make any other comments on the report? No, that's all noted then. So the next agenda item, 13, the South Park Pavilion update, and I'll take 13.1, the updated report first. Does anybody wish to comment on this? Yes, Councillor Livingston.
Just an update for colleagues. So the South Park Pavilion is a venue and an opportunity for the whole town. It must be seen as that as we develop the design for it. We have, as you're aware, appointed Bauer Matten as our architects. The other design team consultants have now been appointed. Surveys are commencing in terms of topographical survey, a number of other surveys, and just from the meeting prior to this, our architect's going off to study 2 options in terms of a 2-storey design, which has been the broad preference so far, or a single-storey design. Hopefully by the time we come back to the next council meeting, we'll have that, plus we'll have identified a budget for the new building as it develops out. And beyond that, we're considering running a bit of a competition for the local primary schools in South and Central wards, and something separately, an engagement process for Mac Academy, which is the local secondary school. So I think we are making progress.
Okay, thank you, Sandy. Councillor Livingston, any other comments on the report? Can I also just add briefly that you'll see the final sentence of the report is that a civic event is planned for the 13th of August. This will be my first mayoral civic event, and I've been working, the events officer has been putting in some good work already, and we have some nice plans to organise an event which will both celebrate our lovely park, one of my favourite places in Macclesfield in the world, being 100 years old, and also, most importantly, consulting with residents and users of the park as to what they like to see, So I wanted to have something to fit in with the park centenary and also to help us with our consultation with residents. And I think that this evening we've had early this evening, Councillor Livingston, myself and the town clerk have had a meeting with the architects and the representative from ANZA, and we've made some really good progress. I feel very excited about the consultation with young people, particularly the younger school students, because of course Councillor Puttick and I were called to go to one of our local schools where pupils there had been thinking in their geography classes about the parks nearby, and they presented us, they wrote, each one of them had written to us, hadn't they, Councillor Puttick, about their desire to have a tree house in what they call Little Park, which is Ash Grove Park, and we used our budget to pay for that. So, you know, school students and young people are the future, and I think that it's all very exciting stuff. So, the next item, so that's noted. Yeah, next item 13.2, the reserve report. Now we need to take action on this, so I think it's worthy of us having a discussion about it. Does anybody have any comments they want to make initially, or questions to the clerk? Yes, Councillor Livingston.
Given that we've just discussed the progress we're making with the South Park Pavilion, clearly this will be quite a significant financial commitment. The report, as I see it, is about us using reserves that have been accrued by the council historically. This isn't the running cost of the council. This is specifically using money that's in reserves earmarked for the benefit of the town and being seen as a council to do that. I think that's the main thrust of this. And clearly there's a reallocation of resources, but there's quite a significant expenditure that the council will be dedicating towards South Park Pavilion, which I clearly am very supportive of that.
Okay, anybody else want to comment? Town clerk, do you want to say anything?
Yeah, just to say that we have quite high reserves. They're over 12 months. The idea, many are earmarked as shown for projects and parts of things that we still want a commitment to. We just haven't, for one reason or another, been able to do, like there's bits for the parks, like Banbury Park still has a bit left over, and we don't want it to get lost, so we keep it in the earmarked reserves, etc. So the main one is that we have £122,180 in something in a reserve called economic development. So we'll be taking that and using that towards South Park, and then using some of the free reserves, which is reserves that are in the bank but not allocated to any specific project, towards South Park, to give a total of £500,000 for the project. This would leave the council with approximately 3 months of free reserves, which is, I've consulted Chalk, I've read all about it because I passed my Silk now. So it's perfectly reasonable and normal, and actually we should be spending the money in our bank account, in our reserves, on the town, rather than just saving it all. So.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Howard.
Thank you, Chair, because, sorry, I'm going to use this. We have decided on the community transport notion of, is that correct?
Yes, can I deal with the South Park?
Okay, I'll come on that.
We'll finish that off, and then I'll come straight back to you, Councillor Howard, and we can talk about the community transport, if that's okay. So, the actual, we have to consider the proposals in the attached report, which are around the South Park Pavilion. And so they are outlined in the proposal on page 96 of your agenda pack. So this is for approval, and this is regarding the South Park Pavilion project. So can I ask that all those in favour of the reserves reallocations please indicate?
Is that just for South Park?
Yes, yeah. That's a unanimous decision, thank you. That's really important that we've made that unanimous decision, and I do very much agree that, you know, sitting on funds in the bank and not doing anything with them is not what council should be doing to support the members of the public, and delivering a pavilion in South Park will be a really fantastic project, particularly with the consultation process we've designed. So I'm going to go back now to Councillor Harewood, who wants to make a contribution. I think Councillor Harewood, about the community transport allocation.
Thank you, Chair. I would suggest that we who have will look at this issue, get together at some point and some date to start putting our thoughts together. So if this council is agreeable, we hope to meet. I hope to ask the others, councillors, if Councillor, what she's called, Jackson and yourself, if we could have a date where we could actually put our heads together to form a way forward or not on how we can tackle this issue positively. So I would like some approval that we have a date that we can name together.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'd like to speak on something else if you come to that, please.
Can we deal with the items
Okay.
one by one?
Okay, right, okay.
So in earmark reserves there is £100,000 for community transport. And just to give you a little bit of history on this, it's been there for a couple of years, largely due to COVID. In my previous role, I was asked by the town council to do some research on community transport, and obviously I'm not there anymore, I'm here now. So the idea was I've written some terms of reference for a community transport subgroup to go to the services committee. And in the previous time it was Councillor Puttock, Councillor Howard and Councillor Jackson who were going to be on it. I know Councillor Thompson wants to be on it. So the course of action will be, that will be approved at services, and then that's July the 11th, and then we will have a date in July for the actual community transport meeting. If that, yeah, and we hopefully will ask the community transport director for England to come along to give us some guidance in how so we'll be looking at July basically.
Thank you.
Does that adequately answer your query? Yeah. Was there something else you wanted to raise, Councillor Harewood?
I wanted to raise
Sorry. Hang on 1 second, please, Councillor Harewood. Councillor Edwards.
Yeah, I just have thank you, Madam Mayor. I have a particular interest in this community transport. I have done a little bit of investigation, and I have spoken to Golden Green Transport, they're called, I think, about having our own bus service and so on. There is, in fact, a website for community transport, and there's lots of other councils are starting them as well. And just to say that I'd really like to be involved in it.
Do you want to be on the committee? Okay, Councillor Puttock.
Yes, just very quickly to add that I think the scope of this is, is really very exciting. And Councillor Harewood has been very good that you've actually frequently brought it back up and reminded people that we've got this initiative from before COVID, because the scope of it reaches out to active travel, which is a key policy for the town council, but also, I mean, I think that we can look quite far as to how it connects, how other parishes have successfully run community transport around this area, around the wider Mansfield area, and I think this, I mean, after COVID, we've got to learn lessons after COVID as well about being connected and not isolated. So I think that now is an excellent time to kickstart it.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else on community transport? Yes, Councillor Billy.
Just to add to Councillor Puttock's statement, is that with the cost of petrol and diesel and everything going up, and the reduction in public transport, I think it's a shame that town councils, parish councils have to step in and do this. But I also think it's very proactive, and we don't want people being isolated. We do want them to be able to afford to get to the hospital or the shops, and it's vitally important. So I'm so pleased that we brought this up again. Thank you.
Okay, so following the discussion, we've been reminded by the town clerk that we already have provisions in place for a community transport committee of Councillor Harewood, Councillor Jackson, and Councillor Puttock. and Councillor Thompson and Councillor Edwards have indicated they would like to join that working group, and the paper will be going to the next Services Committee meeting on the 11th of July, and then we'll take things forward from there. Is that all agreed? Excellent. So, Councillor Howard, did you have another point you wanted to raise on this report?
I wanted to raise another point on the second or third item, town centre signs, when you get to that. Can I raise that now?
Yes, please do. The £20,000 for town centre signs.
I
Yes.
plead that when signs are being considered, they're not just considered for the town centre. I don't know what the town centre signs will be, but we also have street signs. I don't know if you mean street signs. No, you mean signage to places.
Yeah, the £20,000 spending on town centre signs was agreed, I think, a couple of meetings ago, and there's 3 different projects. One of the projects is to help people get from the train station into the town centre. The other project is to get people to the Castle Quarter, you know, where there's lots of, just down Church Street, where there's lots of new businesses. And the third project is signs for the indoor market. So they're very specific sort of orientation signs to get people to locations in the town centre. I think if you've got concerns about street signs not being adequate, talk to the rangers.
I will also plead for a sign to the bird sanctuary. This is a very well-used public space, and if we have a little sign, I thank you.
I think that's an excellent idea, and I recommend that you make an application through your ward budget to have the sign put in there. I think that'd be an excellent thing to do. Councillor Bennett-Wake.
God loves a train.
We got something.
Sorry, Madam Mayor. Just to say that I'm pleased with the work that's been done at Banbury Park. I went on Saturday. The drainage does actually seem to be working, but it was a dry day.
Yeah.
There's still children playing on the mugger, aka basketball, netball court, whatever you're going to call it, and the planting looks lovely. And the residents who've done all the planting right along that piece of grass is amazing. It's like an aviary. So many different birds there. They've got bird feeders, and this is all community led, which I know my friend Councillor Herman absolutely loves. So I have a few ideas for the rest of the budget, which I will get in touch with you about and consult the community. So thank you very much.
It's just wonderful to hear that it's finally getting there.
Yes, excellent news. Thank you, Councillor Bennett-Wake. Councillor Edwards.
While we're on, thank you. While we're on about the parks, have we heard any more about the person who wants to start the basketball? No. Thank you.
Okay. So we've agreed the action already on the reserves report, which specifically related to the South Park Pavilion, and had a good discussion on the other reserves. I think it's actually a very useful item, Town Clerk, to look at where the reserves are up to, and I think maybe we might want to do that maybe quarterly and have a report on the earmark reserves, because the whole point about earmark reserves is you put something to one side to enable you to pay for that. And of course at the moment with COVID, that quite a few of our projects are being delayed. I won't even mention about public conveniences and the challenges we have with that, but I think our relocation might mean we can get that sorted out. But I think a review of our reserves report and what we've allocated and for what would be, I think, quarterly, would be worthwhile having a quarterly review. Do we agree? Because it sparks a good debate this evening on community action. And as my mayoral theme is our community stronger together, I heartily approve. So we go to agenda item 14, the community enforcement update. Town Clerk, yourself and Councillor Jackson have met with the community enforcement team at Cheshire East Council. So in the absence of Councillor Jackson, was there anything else you would wish to add?
Just that they were very clear that what they could and couldn't do and where their powers lay and didn't lay. A lot of it would be prevention and education, we would basically fund a community enforcement officer who would work with the current community enforcement team, a little bit like the Rangers. They would be they wouldn't be in our office per se, but they would be welcome in our office, and we would want to create a relationship with them. They would cover Macclesfield only, whereas the current two cover quite a large area, Poynton, Macclesfield. I think they might even cover Congleton actually. So we'd have somebody dedicated, and it would work in the case that if, for instance, we would say, we might start with Christchurch because that's the one that everybody says about, that they would spend, that would be their sort of first indicator, you know, they'd go down and see, prevent any dog mess, maybe issue a few tickets if they can catch somebody, and I'm absolutely convinced that that will stop it once somebody gets a ticket and then everybody else finds out. I really think that it's that kind of behavioural change. So the process is that they will be recruiting, and then this again seems to take some time because then they have to be security checked and DBS checked and do a bit of training. So realistically, I think we'd be looking at the end of summer that we'd actually have this community enforcement officer in place. So that we've basically said go ahead with that at this point.
Okay, so I've got a number of people who indicate, so I'm going to take them in the order I saw them. So, Councillor Wilcox first, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your reports. Obviously, gives us an understanding of what we're up to. One thing that I just wanted to ask a question really, as I was walking around to St Albans School on the school run, I saw one of the Cheshire East enforcement officers monitoring parking. One thing he mentioned to me is there's a potential that they'll have powers to ticket for obstructions. So going on to what Councillor Bennett Blake was talking about when the police representative was here, is that something that we can clarify at all, please?
I can ask, that I was never given any indication that the person employed for this job will have anything to do with parking, but I will ask.
Yeah, no, that's good. It was just as I said, they were there.
They may have
randomly.
different powers, different ones, but I'll ask.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Harewood.
I'm sorry to missed me. I was just going to ask if that the last paper will cover, or if it, just signs to be put in on places about people removing their dog mess. Are we able to do that with this paper? Are we able to do that at all?
I think we already have at Town Park. Signs about
Because I've been asked if you could just put up some signs somewhere.
Yeah, can you put some up in Christchurch? Is there anywhere else? If people want signs,
just ask you.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Councillor Harewood, we prepared some signs to go around Christchurch in Macclesfield, in central Macclesfield.
Well, I've asked along Kendall Road. I've been asked if he could put some signs up, and I wasn't quite sure if it was the police or highways or who.
I will do that tomorrow, Eilif. It'll be up tomorrow.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Harewood. Yes, Councillor Busick.
Thank you. So I just first of all want to very clearly welcome this. I think this is something that residents will be very interested in. I actually think in many ways actually a number of people I'd speak to would welcome education and sort of and maybe building up to a ticket for people. So it's not necessarily punitive, but working working positively. And I do think it's a numbers game. Like Congleton, Wilmslow, Macclesfield, it's a huge area for one person to cover. So if we can help in any way to improve the chances of sort of prevention and sort of an enforcement to work properly, that'll be excellent. And I do also think that that just to come back to what we've talked about tonight, working with the police, working with us as councillors, and getting the CCTV to actually communicate with the enforcement to make it work, because that is absolutely key. I think we asked sort of probably last year now about community enforcement and CCTV communicating, and I remember speaking to the one community enforcement officer and one for our whole area, who said that he never speaks to the CCTV. They have to speak. That should be regularly happening. So I think that if we can, so us encouraging that and have another success like the Town Rangers, hopefully in a few years, if it's anything like the Town Ranger, the community enforcement officer will be more popular than all of us. We'll be able to stand for new mayor of Macclesfield in the future. We want to see that. That's what we want. Positive outcomes.
Thank you, Councillor Puttick. Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A couple of things. One is that we have elections next year, and they're ganging up on me in my opposition, and I'm being accused recently of double taxation about the Rangers and that sort of thing, and I can see that this is going to be mentioned about the community enforcement officer. May I ask if the ticketing is enforceable in law?
Yes. They have certain powers. I don't want to say what the powers are, because once we say, everyone will know. And there's nothing like they don't have that power, but they have powers to issue £80 fines and fines for fly tipping and dog mess. Just like, do you remember the cigarette ones?
Yes.
Instant, and they have powers to take you to court if you do not pay for it.
Very good. It mentions in the report instances of fly tipping and instances of business waste.
Yes.
I wonder, are they going to be working with Cheshire East Council about removing the fly tipping, or are they going to sift through the rubbish to see who dumped it, or how does it work?
They'd be more on the side of investigating where it came from, and then it would be removed by Cheshire East.
And what exactly
or if it was private, they would be fining people or charging them for having it removed.
What exactly is business waste?
Well, it might be overflowing bins in the town centre, which we often have some down at Wood Street, and there's bins on Castle Street. So initially it will be that education, your bins are letting the town centre down, residents don't like it, just that presence of somebody to sort of say, I'm on this,
Thank you very much.
Okay. Any further comments on agenda item 14? No? Okay, so the report is noted, and we now move to agenda item 15, active travel. Does anybody have any comments they want to make on the active travel report? We are being consulted at the moment by Cheshire East Council. The clerks engaged with council for their feedback, and we supported continuing with the active travel scheme. Do you want to make any comments, Town Clerk?
We generally feedback to the active travel scheme in the town centre was to continue allowing cyclists to use the town centre, but there was a few comments that, for some older residents it can be quite scary, and maybe some improved signage to say slow down, and because with outside eating, mobility scooters, people, cyclists, quite a lot going on in town, and maybe some education around that hierarchy, really.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Edwards, and then Councillor Puttick.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Concerning the active travel, I probably have the most in my ward than anybody else. And Manchester Road is going to be closed for a considerable time while they do this work. When I have spoken to the Cheshire East officers, it seems to have been agreed to not have a huge amount of wands all the way down, but to have more or less like sort of cat's eyes down and then a wand, and the cat's eyes and then a wand and so on. I see that in Sandbash, where they've put a ridiculous amount of very stout wands, they've nearly all been wiped out and there's hardly any left. And I look forward to having a good cycle route into town. I'm in favour of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Puttick.
Thank you, Chair. I think well, I won't go into my efforts to borrow the rickshaw from Congleton. But Congleton has its own dedicated community rickshaw. But unfortunately, Cheshire East is so badly connected, it's quite dangerous to travel to take it from Congleton to Macclesfield. But I think, in all seriousness, I was at the MacTastic update, which was very informative, and there's some great groups of local residents and citizens who feel quite empowered and feel quite strongly that after COVID we can't be regressive, we can't step back. We actually managed to realise that how nice it was to not have cars dominating spaces, and sad as it is that people can't actually drive their cars, you know, because of the cost of fuel or whatever else, or lockdown or anything else. Like we can't go back on that. We need to be positive, and as much as there's misgivings and I think unfortunately there's quite a lot of the national media has quite an agenda that kind of about the evils of cycling. We can't take a step back and become and go backwards with this. So I've spoken to a number of people who really feel like the town centre needs to stay visibly full of bikes and full of people using using mobility scooters or whatever else, but being active and being out, you know, because that's part of it, breaking the isolation. And it was, so it's just that I think that we also need, I mean, yourself, Madam Mayor, you talked about as an aim, we want to be connected to Stockport and Manchester. Like, why not? I mean, it's so flat. It's famously flat in Cheshire. We need to connect our towns and be part of that. And we've tried, God knows, with but you know, just with the middle of the way. But we kind of I think we need to kind of make it clear that we're trying, and we'd like to see sort of a more coordinated thing for the whole of Cheshire East.
Yeah, I think Cheshire East Council are more than aware that we're trying to introduce active travel in the Middlewood Way, because I think I shall be pestering them about it until the day I die, I suspect. And we had a very excellent active travel scheme, did we not, from Congleton Road into Macclesfield, proposed, didn't we? Council put it through Danes Moss, of course, but that didn't find favour either. We will continue to push on this because it's a very important topic, and I think we perhaps need to make those contributions, Council Puttick, as part of our response to the consultation. Does anybody else want to speak? Yes, Councillor Thompson.
I was just going to talk about whether we need to maybe make something a little bit more formal, like Councillor Puttick mentioned before, that community transport, active travel, sustainable transport, they're all quite interlinked, and whether it would be useful for the community transport group to maybe incorporate some of those elements, because I think we will naturally, while we're looking at one element, we will be ending up looking at other elements of transport and travel, and whether we could actually incorporate a broader agenda into that subgroup of the Services Committee, and whether we could discuss that when we discuss it at the Services Committee, what that group is going to have as its terms of reference. If that would be amenable to everyone, that would be.
Yes, Town Clerk.
Yes, I think it's a good idea, because I think what I might understand as community transport might be, I come from a disabled charity background, might be quite different to what others consider it to be and what technically I think it is. So I think that initial discussion around transport is absolutely important, and the terms of reference I'll put in for the community transport group, it's just a start of the 10 for the service, but I agree,
Okay, but I think the key thing here is that, you know, we as a council have been and remain key with policy to promote active travel, including cycling, etc. And I think we've done a great deal already to push this forward. And I think responding to Cheshire East Council, particularly about the active travel schemes that haven't yet come to fruition, will be worth us doing. Do we agree? Yeah, okie doke. So that report is noted. So agenda item 16, Town Centre Recovery Working Group. We've got a written report before us. The Town Centre Recovery Working Group last met on the 29th of March. We're meeting in the next couple of weeks for our next meeting. We have a written report in front of us. Town Clerk, do you want to add anything?
No, just that the group continues to work through with the different subgroups.
Yeah.
One of the things which yourself, Madam Mayor, as chair, one of the sort of key parts of this is the outdoor hospitality, and looking to increase those areas, especially as it comes to summer and we can see people want to sit outside. We're really pushing for further areas of little pockets of outdoor eating and seating areas, and hopefully we'll be able to see some more of them before summer is over.
Yes, I mean we have a project we're working very hard on at the moment to try to deliver some outdoor hospitality area in Park Green. Both the Town Centre Recovery Working Group and the Outdoor Hospitality Group is well aware of the growing renaissance that's taking place on Park Green and Sunderland Street, including the Peaks and Plains development, the crossings, which is I think virtually full now. It certainly looks moved into when you walk past it. You know, so I mean there's loads more customers down there as well. So I mean that's something that we are pursuing through the Outdoor Hospitality Group. I mean when I pass through town on Saturday night on my way to a function, the outdoor hospitality area over here in the marketplace that we funded, it's absolutely packed with people enjoying drink, a meal, a pizza. You know, there's loads of offerings in the marketplace area, and it's just a massive success. So yes, we will continue to pursue outdoor hospitality areas. Anyone want to make any comments or on agenda item 16? No? Okay, so the report's noted. So that brings us to agenda item 17, the date and time and place of the next meeting, which will be on the 25th, Monday the 25th of July at the Town Hall at 7 o'clock. Meeting closed at 8:29.